Hi, and welcome back to the It's a Girl Thing podcast. It's me, Kate, and we're here for another day, another chit chat, but it's not just another you and me session. Today, with me, I have the lovely Genevieve Mora, who I'm so excited for us to get down and have a chat with, get to know her, and get to know her story. Hi, Jen. I'm so glad you're here. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor. So as you said, my name's Genevieve Mora, or Jen, or Giraffe, as a lot of people call me, because I'm very tall. And I'm the really proud co-founder of a mental health charity called Voices of Hope, and that takes up a lot of my waking hours. But I guess outside of work, there's lots of things I love, including spending time at the beach with my dog and my husband, watching easy, probably quite terrible reality TV shows, and just relaxing. I'm getting much better at just allowing myself to be, which is a big focus for 2025.
I definitely feel that. I'm the opposite of you, though. I'm on the shorter scale.
Yeah.
So you can be the giraffe. I'll be whatever something
Perfect.
small is.
Perfect. It's like Jazz, my co-founder. I'm the short one, and she's the no. I'm the tall one. She's the short one.
I was about to say, oh, changing paths very quickly. Well,
Absolutely.
I'm very excited to have you on today. I have been following your journey for a wee while now, and I'm so excited that you share the same passion that I do, which is keeping it real and being open and vulnerable with people because we aren't the only ones who go through things. Everyone goes through things, and it's important that we talk about it so it's not such a taboo topic. So I'm super excited for that.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for creating such a safe space to share. I think that's yeah, real power to you there. I think, like you said, it's a big part of my work, not only within Voices of Hope, but my personal life is in the power of sort of storytelling and sharing that lived experience, because it does connect people and it helps people feel less alone. So yeah, I guess before we get into it, thank you for giving me a platform to share more of my journey.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit on the like surface of things. What does your life look like today?
Oh, great question. So every day is very different, and that's why I feel so grateful for the life I live. I work for the charity full time, so Voices of Hope is my full time job, which is amazing. And had you told younger me that was starting this and doing it voluntary around working at a school, she probably wouldn't have believed it. But it is my full time job, and on a Thursday, I'm in the office. We work out a shared space with lots of other cool people around us, and so today it's been a lot of Zoom meetings, and a lot of sort of admin. I think a lot of the work we do at Voices of Hope is campaigns and social content and school tours. So a lot of our time is spent planning that and organising that and creating that, so that we can go and activate those plans at some stage throughout the year. So yeah, today's quite a nice day, more relaxed than usual. I'm just sitting at a laptop and now talking to you.
Sounds like a pretty good day. I love that you're in a community space with other people. It really
Yeah.
means that you're at least getting some kind of like social interaction and being able to work with
Yeah.
people as well.
Absolutely. And I think also like it really separates work from home. I think I went through, especially when you're starting something and building something from scratch, you probably know this all too well, is it's hard to sort of put boundaries of place of, sort of allowing yourself to have time to rest, because there's always something you could be doing. And so I find coming into a workspace, it just separates home and work a bit more. And like you said, there's people around. So it's a bit less lonely.
Yes, yeah, I definitely feel that the like for me, I found it's almost an all or nothing mindset. Like I'll be like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. I can do this, 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 and this, and then and I keep going and keep going and keep going, and I'm like, oh wow, I need to stop. Or I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, but I should rest. Like I shouldn't do this, but there's stuff to be done. So there's like no
Yeah.
in between that, and that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
find.
Yeah. 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 It can be a hard balance or happy medium, eh?
Very much so. Well, I have to ask you the tried and true, my favorite question that I ask all of my guests, which is, what is your favorite thing about being a girl?
Do you know what? When you sent this through originally, it really stumped me because it's not really a question that I've thought of. I've just, I yeah, have sat with it and pondered it. And I guess I love being a girl for multiple reasons. But the one that sort of instantly came to mind, and this doesn't mean that, men or other genders don't experience this, but my experience of being a girl is we're really in touch with our emotions and able to have deep conversations. And maybe that's just in the position I am. Maybe that's not every girl. But personally, I love the fact that the girls in my life, and I like to think myself, are really open and vulnerable and easy to talk to. I think that's, yeah, I think that's a big thing about why I like being a girl.
I I do love this question. That's why I ask it every time because everybody has such different answers, but they all kind of like interconnect. And I
Mm,
definitely agree that the connections we can make with each other and the conversations we can have can go from joking about, oh my gosh, that's a cute guy over there, to
yeah,
suddenly like the deepest feelings that we have from
yeah,
heartbreak to whatever it may be. So I
of course.
definitely agree it's such a special thing about being female.
Sure. It is, isn't it? But yeah, no, it really got me thinking, and I'll probably think of a million other things after this. But it's a great question.
Thank you. So tell the people listening a little bit about you. So describe yourself for me in 3 words.
3 words. Okay. I would like to think I'm empathetic. I hold a lot of empathy for other people, and perhaps that's come through my own lived experience. I am loyal. I'm a loyal friend. I'm really lucky to have wonderful people surrounding me, and I think I'm a good person to be in other people's lives too. I hope. And then determined. I put my mind to something, and I don't give up until I've done it. And it really helps me in sort of my day-to-day life, and I guess life in general. So yeah, empathetic, loyal, determined is what instantly comes to mind.
Such good words. I feel like I'd instantly be like, I'm like, what do we think of? I wouldn't be able to do it. That's such a
It's
challenge. So
hard.
good
No,
on
it's
you.
also it's I think it can be, and I think this is society in general, it can be hard to talk nicely about yourself, right? Like it's quite a maybe it's tall poppy in New Zealand, but to be like, I'm loyal, I'm empathetic, I'm determined, it feels a little bit icky. But I think it's so important to embrace.
Yes, I feel like especially just as you said, tall poppy New Zealand is very much like you can't be up yourself in any way, even if it's complimenting the good things about you that are like
Yeah.
living proof without
Yeah.
having to be like, but no, I'm better than everybody else. But you can be like, I'm good at this without being,
Yeah.
I'm good at this, but I'm better than this person.
Well, that means everyone else is crap at this or whatever. Yeah, no,
Yeah, exactly.
completely relate to that.
Well, we did talk about it briefly, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what a typical day looks like for you. Maybe a different day outside of the
Yeah.
office. What hobbies, things do you like that do you have?
Yeah, so I guess in terms of a typical day, I might pick a week when we're something fun, like when we're on school tours. So we usually go away for sort of a 5 day block at a time, but I'll pick, I don't know, a Wednesday. So usually I will wake up. I might go for a stroll. I find getting outside and getting some fresh air is really, really important for me. I will definitely have a coffee and definitely have something delicious for breakfast. I find when we're out on the road for school tours, we'll often go out for breakfast just because we don't usually have access to a kitchen. And then, yeah, we'll spend the day sort of moving between schools. We'll do 3 schools in one day. And then schools obviously finish at 3 p.m. And so from 3 p.m. onwards, I'll usually kind of tie up some loose ends and admin work wise. And then 5 o'clock onwards, usually it's just time to chill. Jazz and I often find ourselves watching Grey's Anatomy and getting, food and just chilling and making TikToks and that sort of thing. So I guess that's more like a fun week in the life. I guess day to day, this morning I woke up, I actually went to the gym this morning, and then I jumped to the ocean, which I didn't want to do, but my husband was like, we're jumping in the ocean. So I was like, okay, but we're going to do this. And it felt great. And then I've just been in the office for the day. I'm going to go home. My mum's coming to stay tonight, which will be lovely. So yeah, every day is very different. It depends what's going on, and then obviously filming days are different too. But what I'm really much better at now, that was terrible English, is making sure at some point in my day I'm doing something for me, whether that's lying on the
Mhm.
couch at the end of the day and watching, a TV show, or jumping in the ocean or going for a walk. There has to be something daily that's just me time, in order to sort of stay well.
I love that. I think that's so important. And so many people, at the end of the day, there's so many things we have to do to live, to survive, that people forget that life is also meant to be lived and we're also meant to do stuff that fills ourselves so that we can actually enjoy it.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I've learned that a lot through my work. That if I'm not sort of looking after myself in the best way possible, I'm not going to be a great, support or asset to other people. You got to pour your own cup first, or whatever the saying is, right?
Pretty much. You said that it was a really warm day for you.
Yes.
Was the ocean freezing?
The ocean wasn't as cold as I thought it was going to be. It was early. It was about 7 a.m. So I think I was probably still half asleep. Um, it wasn't as cold, but I'm definitely not someone that goes in the ocean and hangs around because the thought of sharks terrify me. I dip in, and as soon as I'm under, I'm out. So it was a very quick process. Although I
You're
do
like,
stand there for a while being like, I'm going to go on to the next wave and then the next wave. And then I finally, get the courage to actually dip my head under.
it's funny. Some friends and I went to the beach the other day because it was one of the first bits of really nice weather here where we're
Yeah,
studying. And it was so funny because we went in, two of our friends are like, oh my gosh, this is freezing. We're not going under. And my other friend and I are like, yes, we're going to go
we're
under.
doing it.
So I start
Yeah.
walking towards the wave and she comes in. I don't even have a chance to think and do it for myself. And she tackles me under.
No.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
I've got like
I came back
yeah.
up and I was like, Abby.
Don't do that. I hate being splashed. I'm like, let me do it in my own time.
I'm
But
like, I would
sometimes
have
you need a
got
bit
there.
of
And maybe it was a good thing for me because it forced
it
me to do it
was.
straight away. But I was like,
Absolutely. Like, this is not what I planned.
pretty much. So, what are some of your favorite hobbies or activities that you do in your free time or things that fill your cup, or are those activities you do for yourself?
Yeah, great question. So I like I said, I love being outside. Being at the beach is just sort of like, without sounding too cliche and you know, what's the word? I guess cliche. I find it really healing. Like, I just love being by the water. So that might be a walk on the beach. I love going to the driving range and hitting golf balls. My husband's a really keen golfer, so I'm trying to get into it so I can spend more time with him. And so yeah, hitting balls at the driving range is quite fun as well. I love spending time with friends, whether that's out for dinner or out for some drinks. What else? I'm a sucker for like easy to watch TV, like reality TV. It's probably not good for my brain, but I just like watching things that don't require any brain thinking. So that's definitely something I love doing. I got asked this recently, and it's funny because I don't have a lot of hobbies. And I don't know if that's because I love my job so much that it just kind of becomes all parts of my life. And that might be really sad. Hopefully not. But yeah, I think when I have free time, it's often just relaxing or strolling on the beach.
I
I
do
wish I
agree
could say I'm
with
like a gymnast or like a archery person or something, but I'm not.
got to leave an air of mystery.
Exactly.
I don't think there's anything wrong with those things. You love your work and you do that, but you're still taking time for yourself, no matter how that is. But
Yeah,
on the
thank you.
topic of TV shows, do we have a show that's currently on repeat or a favorite that you go back to watching?
Yes, so I'm deep in Grey's Anatomy and I have been for a while, but I'm taking a slight break because there's new characters and it's just become a bit too much for my brain at the moment. So I am now hooked on The Rookie, which Jazz actually told me to watch. She was like, I know you will like this. And it's a cop, I don't know if you've heard of it, but like a cop show. They're rookies going into the LAPD, and there is just so much that goes on every episode that it is impossible to get bored. So yeah, that show's my show at the moment. I'm loving it.
It's funny you say that because I watched Grey's Anatomy for the first time last year and I like binged my way through it. And I'm studying medical imaging. So I'm studying a medical
Oh my
based
God.
degree as well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that word and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's funny. And funnily enough, over the summer break, my parents and I, when I've been home, we've all started watching The Rookie together. And so it was
Oh,
like our
cool.
family TV show. Everyone would sit down
I
after work
love
for the
that.
night and would watch an episode or two. So
Oh,
we've
good.
just caught up and I can't wait for season 7 to come out. So
Oh,
it's
you've
funny you
caught up.
say
Yeah, no,
that.
I'm like in season 2, so I've got a long way to
You've got a wee
go.
way to go, but
Yeah,
it gets real good.
Yay, I'm excited. Oh, that's so funny. You watch the same shows.
So on the podcast over the last few weeks, we've been talking about what 2024 was like and then shifting into 2025 with our like goals and the ways we want to set up for the year. So what was one of your highlights from 2024 and maybe one of your lower lights?
Oh, great question. 2024 it was a big year. I think, something that really stood out for me is we did multiple weeks of school tours, and I know I keep talking about work, but work is so much a big part of my life. I really loved being out there. It pushed me outside my comfort zone. Talking to teenagers can be scary sometimes. And we just got to meet so many incredible people. I think a lot of the work we do is online, so we're not interacting with people face to face, unless we're at a community event or at a school. So I really, really loved that. That was definitely a highlight, as well as the opportunity to go to New York with Jazz. That was really special. And then a low light. I mean, there were definitely lots of lows and lots of highs throughout it. You've stumped me. 2024. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a low light. It's something that I'm continuing to work on. And I guess was a challenge in 2024 is boundaries. I'm a yes person. I say yes to everything. And I found myself in 2024 saying yes to things that I didn't necessarily have capacity for. And so that's a real focus shifting into 2025 to really just like make sure I'm not overcommitting, because when I overcommit, I get stressed. And when I'm stressed, it just impacts all elements of my life. So yeah, that's what instantly comes to mind. There was probably multiple times I bawled my eyes out and I can't think about them, which is either a good thing or a bad thing.
I guess it's a good thing because whatever it is didn't really stick with you long enough to be memorable.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
Maybe it was just one of those moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, the world is just so overwhelming right now. Just gonna cry
Yeah,
about it and then we'll pick ourselves up and keep going.
absolutely. I definitely have those moments.
So, a lot of what you do is your work and just social media and talking about your story and your journey and empowering other people to do the same and to recover from their own struggles. So, what actually inspired you to start sharing your story like with the world and the internet and becoming an advocate for mental health in New Zealand and throughout the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. So to summarize it and not keep you here for 12 hours, I have my own lived experience. So during my teenage years, I went through a really difficult battle with anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and anorexia nervosa, an eating disorder, and it consumed, a lot of my years from the age of 10 to sort of 17. I was quite consumed with all these challenges, and a big thing I felt throughout that was shame. I felt really embarrassed. I felt like I had done something wrong. I am really lucky to have a beautiful family, mum and dad and my sister, and we had a family dog, and like I just was wrapped in so much love. There was no reason, and so I felt really guilty but also really confused as to why I was struggling so much. And obviously I now know that mental health and mental illness can affect anyone, but there was a lot of shame. And so throughout my journey, what I really needed to hear, and what Jazz really needed to hear, and she had a separate journey to me, was stories of hope, and just to be reminded that there's no shame in fighting a battle with your mind, and that actually what we're going through in that moment didn't have to be what we went through forever, that there was hope and there was recovery and there was a life after mental illness. And so Jazz and I were connected through a mutual friend, and we started talking online first. I don't encourage talking to strangers, but it really worked out quite well in this case. And we realized pretty quickly that we had a few things in common. So we both had lived experience. We were both really interested in film and television, and we both really had a need or a desire to help people like our younger selves. So we started sort of brainstorming, and at first it was going to be a blog platform, and what it has become and became was Voices of Hope, which is a lived experience storytelling platform that shares people's lived experience in a really safe and inspiring way to remind people like our younger self and like all the people out there that are currently fighting a battle with their mind, that they are stronger than they even realize, and that they can get through what they're going through or learn to manage it and live a really fulfilled, beautiful life. And I guess ultimately remind them that the world's better with them in it. So yeah, everything I do comes from my lived experience. And it's such a privilege to be able to use such a challenging, crappy, awful time for good. And so, yeah, I'll forever be grateful for the opportunity to have started Voices of Hope, and to have a platform and a space where I can hopefully inspire people who, yeah, are going through their own journeys.
That's so wonderful. I love that what you've gone through hasn't held you back in the long run and held you back with that shame and struggle, but it's actually empowered you to push forward and show other people that there is actually something so much more greater or so much greater than the struggles that they could face or be facing.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that was I really appreciate that. I think, sharing something so vulnerable is never easier. It's definitely got a lot easier, and it's something that I feel relatively comfortable doing now. There's also moments where I go, oh my goodness, like what are these people going to think? But what I've learned is the more you do something, the less overwhelming and scary it becomes. And I felt that I could role model that. And I guess, yeah, the main point of me sharing my story at that moment when I chose to share it, which was actually after Voices of Hope launched, because I hadn't found comfort in being able to share my own story, was the fact that there were so many people struggling, and if I could be uncomfortable you know, for 10 minutes to help someone feel comfortable in the middle of their fight, then it was worth it. And I'm a big quote person, and there's a quote that says shame can't survive vulnerability, and I really believe that. The more you speak about it, the less shame consumes you and other people. So yeah, it definitely was scary at first, but it's been worth it, seeing the impact and change that's come from it.
In a way, when you guys started, when you obviously launched Voices of Hope and you started putting into it in social media and talking to people and word of mouth and all those things, did you ever expect it to like blow up as big as it was? And like, how did that make you feel? Like, were you just expecting to be like one or few people or
Yeah,
millions?
yeah, it's a great question. So when we actually, which a lot of people don't know, we actually originally launched in 2014. I think we were, quick math, I think we're about 18. And what we realized when we launched is that there was a lot of need. We had a lot of people instantly coming to us sharing their most vulnerable moments, and we just didn't have the structural support or stability or guidance and awareness of the mental health landscape to actually be able to run safely. And so we pulled Voices of Hope down. It wasn't up for very long, maybe a couple of months, and relaunched again in 2017. And from 2017 onwards, that's really when it sort of blew up, for the lack of a better word. And I think, you know, ideally we wouldn't exist, right? There wouldn't be people struggling with their mental health, but for as long as they are, we plan to be here. And mental health is something, you know, we all have. And obviously there's spectrums, and you know, people struggle with mental illness and other people struggle with mental health challenges. But I think if anything, what we've created shows a need of the lived experience voice, and hearing stories and seeing people or experiences like your own really is powerful. It can really make a difference in your journey, knowing that there is hope. And we make it very clear at Voices of Hope, we're not a help seeking organization, we're hope seekings. You know, you come to us to hopefully find hope and inspiration, but we're not a phone line, we're not a counseling service. Hopefully we can direct you towards the right people, but our purpose is to inspire, I guess, on the masses.
I think the such an important thing about that is, in the stories of hope, is that they're from real people, that they're not
Yeah,
just people. Like, there's something about somebody just saying, oh, it's going to be okay, you're going to get through this. But when somebody can say, I know where you are, I've
yeah,
been where you are, and it won't magically change overnight, but it does get better. Like, there's
100%.
such a difference in hearing it from somebody alike to you.
Yeah, no, completely. I used to get really frustrated when people would be like, I understand how it feels. I'm like, how do you, like, I don't know that you understand this because I have no idea what you've been through. I'd be like, stop telling me you understand when you don't. Whereas, like you said, if you see it and you hear it and you see the person and it's a real lived experience, it does create that, yeah, that connection and I guess community, right?
Definitely. Well, we're going to get into some slightly deeper questions that target a little bit more about your journey with your struggles and your recovery and that things like that, and the support team you had surrounding you during that. What was the turning point in your recovery journey? Because I
Mm.
know a lot of the time people get forced into recovery because other people intervene for you. But when did you decide you wanted to start fighting and recover and fight your battles?
That is a great point. So there's two parts to this question. I think a massive turning point for me, and again, this wasn't optional, was being admitted to hospital at the age of 15. And I want to validate everyone else that is struggling that you do not have to be admitted to hospital to be worthy and deserving of freedom and recovery. And you can start healing before you get to that point. Most people will not end up in hospital and still be incredibly sick. And that is entirely valid. So I think for me, that was sort of a non-negotiable. I was admitted to hospital. I was told what was happening, you know, and I guess in many ways I was also in a position where I was so exhausted that I just gave in. I just wanted to get through whatever this was. I think a personal turning point for me was another situation after my general sort of pediatric admissions. I had an admission to the psychiatric unit at Starship, and there was a psychologist, and he said to me, you know, what are your dreams for the future? And I'd always been like a big dreamer and a big forward thinker. And I said, these are my dreams. And I actually saw him recently, and he said, in the moment that you told me your dreams, he goes, I knew you were going to be okay because you were thinking about the future. You had stuff that you wanted to live for. And having those I guess that hard evidence of why I was fighting became such a huge turning point in my recovery, because in the moments where things were so difficult and the behavior or the urge to engage in behaviors was so strong, or I was so over it, knowing why I was doing it definitely kept me going. So probably the biggest turning point, I mean, there was lots of multiple ones, was writing that initial list, my dreams and my hopes for the future. That was huge for me.
That's so empowering. Just like the finding reasons that future you wanted to have to keep going, the
Yeah.
things that you wanted for yourself that
Mm-hmm.
pushed you to be where you are now. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
talked
And I think like, so I was just gonna say on that note too, Jazz always says, it's hard to fight if you don't know what you're fighting for. And I think, it can be really hard to find reasons to recover when you're in the thick of it. But even if it's the smallest glimmer of hope to hold on to, I think it's so important.
anything's better than nothing for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
you talked about the psychologist or psychiatrist, whoever it was, who empowered you through that. I'd love to hear about a time where you really truly felt supported by someone in your eating disorder recovery and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, wow. Oh my goodness, there were multiple, that's not a word, there were multiple moments. I think it'd be wrong not to mention my parents and the support they gave me, not only during meal times, but in terms of, preparing food and sitting with me through really challenging moments, and helping me disrupt some of the urges to engage in behaviors. But I think, and I love them, but I think the thing that instantly comes to mind was when I was in hospital. So the way it worked is you'd have your meal and you'd have to have 30 minutes of bed rest. And this is 10 years ago. No, what is it? 15 years ago. Goodness. So I don't even know how it works now necessarily. But I used to really struggle with that 30-minute rest afterwards, because that's when my thoughts were really loud. So one of the nurses said to me, how about you do your rest by the nurses station? And she took me out there, and there was like this big breastfeeding chair that the mothers would sit in. And every time after meals, the nurse would walk me there, or one of the nurses would walk me there, and I would just sit so I wasn't alone. And I think it impacted me more than they probably, still realized that day, just not being left alone in that moment when my mind was screaming at me. And I would often use that sort of 30 minutes after meals to journal. I found journaling really helpful. So yeah, I guess I felt really supported then. Not being told, suck it up and sit with it, but being given an option to move out to the nurses station and be around them. Yeah, when the thoughts were really loud.
I love that people just being people and their loving, caring selves and do acts of kindness or just do things that they're like, oh, yeah, that's just
Yeah,
normal and it can make all the difference.
different. Yeah, completely.
In your lived experience, how does recovery from an eating disorder differ when
Big word.
OCD is also involved? What unique challenges did you find that presented?
Yeah, great question. So, again, obviously, as you mentioned, this is my lived experience, and it will be different for everyone that can, relate to OCD and eating disorders. Originally, from sort of the age of 12, I started really struggling, 10, 12 years. When I was sort of in my earlier teen years or tween years, OCD was something that I was really struggling with, and those behaviors and rituals were very much around keeping my family safe. Those continued throughout my teenage years, but what I ended up finding was happening when the eating disorder got involved or joined the party, or however, terrible terminology. But, when I started struggling with an eating disorder, throughout this process, some of those behaviors and rituals and the thoughts and sessions became more around, weight management and eating disorder, thoughts and behaviors. So it's not uncommon for individuals with mental illness in general, but eating disorders to have other comorbidities, one being OCD. It is, something that many people experience. They are really connected. And I think that was a challenge throughout recovery. And one of the first things I had to do was with my psychologist, kind of write down what was OCD thoughts, behaviors, compulsions, rituals, and what was eating disorder, and really separate them out, because they were just so meshed together. I think, part of my personal recovery, and again, this won't be the same for everyone, was regaining weight that shouldn't have been lost in the first place. And I think once I was in a physically better space, my mind was more challenged in many ways, because I'd been fighting against the eating disorder to get to that healthier weight or size for my body to function properly. And so I found that my OCD picked up a lot then. So there were definitely moments where it worked together, and definitely moments where, it was very much OCD led or eating disorder led. But I guess something that did really help me, that I learned for OCD that ended up in turn helping me for my eating disorder, was exposure therapy. So a lot of my recovery or therapy was around being exposed to the source of anxiety. So going against or opposite actions for what my mind was telling me. So say my OCD was telling me I had to use 4 paper towels, I'd use 3, and I'd sit with that uncomfortable feeling, worrying that my family were going to be hurt. And what I learned by doing this more and more is that thoughts weren't facts, and that it would pass. And that became very similar with food. I learned that, the only way, well, not the only way, but in order to recover, I was going to have to do opposite actions. If my mind or my eating disorder was saying, don't eat that, I'd have to eat that. Or do this, I'd do the opposite. So in many ways, the healing was very combined, as was the slippery slope of it all. I don't know if I've explained that well. It makes more sense in my head, but yeah, it was definitely complex. They're individually complex, and together there's probably additional complexities when they're mushed.
Definitely. I can't even imagine. But I did love what you said about the fact that thoughts aren't facts. I think it's something when we're so in depth in our heads and our minds and worried or anxious or having OCD thoughts, all those kind of things, we get so stuck in our head that we think our thoughts are facts.
Yeah.
So being able to
Yeah.
separate that they are two different things, and that most of the time the fact is actually the opposite of the thought.
Yeah.
It's quite a
I would call it.
crazy thing to comprehend.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. It's something that I learned throughout this process, and I share it whenever I go into schools. And it's, anxiety is temporary; it cannot hurt you, and it always passes. And that's something I used to always have to repeat to myself, because I would just learn to have, or I had learned that I had to just sit with that uncomfortable feeling in order for it to pass, as opposed to trying to engage in behaviors to relieve it, but then very quickly it was back.
I'm just giving you a heads up. We've got about 6 minutes left, but I'll give you like a 1 minute thing and we can just start a new one and pick back up where we left off. I wanted to ask, because obviously mental health isn't about us. Well, it is about us, but it's more so about I have to rework out how I'm going to word that. It's not just about our brains, it's about our health overall. It's chemical imbalances, and it doesn't just go away. We can manage it, it can get better, we can work through it. How do you manage your mental health on a daily basis now? How does your recovery journey continue even into today?
Great question. So I often talk about the fact, which, I'd never want to go through what I went through again, but how I almost feel, lucky is not the right word. There are some silver linings that have come from that. And one of the things I feel really grateful for is the fact that I'm so aware and conscious that I need to be taking care of my mental health, something that people who perhaps haven't gone through challenges and tricky moments maybe don't have the privilege of knowing. And so I think for me, there's things that I do daily or incorporate into my weeks, whether it's moving my body, and that looks like a whole lot of different things, the gym, a walk on the beach. I'm really lucky now to have a really wonderful relationship with exercise, and so if I don't feel like doing it, I don't do it. If I want to do it, it fills my cup. I take medication still, and that's something that I might be on forever. I'm not sure, and I'm in no way ashamed of that. It aids my healing and continues to just keep me leveled. And also, medication's not a miracle fix, and it's very complex because some people completely believe in it and some people don't. But it works really well for me. I'm much better at asking for help, and so if I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, whether it's to my mum, dad, sister, husband, my workmates, I'll just voice it as opposed to trying to just keep it internal. And I think, like I said before, getting outside and making sure that I have some time for myself, regardless of what that looks like, reading a book, watching a TV show, lying on the couch, having a nap. I'm a great napper. I love naps. I love sleeping. So if I can get a nap in my day, it's a good day. So yeah, there's multiple things I do. I thrive on routine, and I also am challenging myself to be more spontaneous. And so, yeah, I think I often talk about this when we're in schools too, like just like you get up and you brush your teeth and you get dressed and go to the bathroom. There's things you do every day to keep yourself well, and there's things you need to be doing every day to keep your mind well as well.
I like that. That's a really simple way to put it for people to comprehend. So, getting to near the end of our chats, I thought this is an important way of summarizing for anyone listening. If the people listening could take away three pieces of wisdom from you and your journey and what you've gone through to experience and share, what would you tell them?
Oh, big question. My first one would be that you're not the exception to healing. I always hear from people being like, well, that's you, that's you. And I know so many people that have healed, and no one that I've met that has recovered or healed from their challenges or found freedom or, is learning to manage them has ever regretted, pushing through that really challenging moment. So you're not an exception to healing. You're not a burden. I think that's really important. And my last one would be, I guess what I said before, anxiety is temporary, it cannot hurt you, and it always will pass. And learning to sit with the uncomfortable is so important. And learning to know or realizing that the only way out is through is also very important.
I like that. The only way out is through.
Yes. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I guess it's like any challenge in life, not even just mental health struggles. You can't just
Avoid
magically
it.
go around it. You can't avoid it. It's something you've got to go straight through.
Yeah. I wish there was like a magic pill or you could jump over it, but you can't.
No, I'd need longer legs for that.
Yeah. Maybe I can.
So I know you do a lot of advocating and educating about mental health. What projects are you strongly involved with that young people can check out to support their recovery journeys and show that hope is real?
Yeah, awesome. So obviously Voices of Hope, the voicesofhope.org, where you can find us on Instagram. I also have an app that we're actually exclusive information looking at turning into an ebook, and that's Love Your Kite. And that's a app to support recovery from an eating disorder. I'm really privileged to sit on a few advisory boards, sharing my lived experience. So yeah, there's a number of things, but I guess the best way to find us is online, and connect with us there. And people always ask sort of how best can we support you and help Voices of Hope. And one of the best things you can do is just share our content, and help us inspire other people by doing that too.
That's wonderful. I'm glad there's so many ways now with I love technology in the sense that it connects us
Yeah.
so easily with information and support and things that people
Yeah.
wouldn't have had in the past.
Yeah, completely. I forgot one more thing, which I always forget. I also wrote a book about my own journey. So if anyone's interested in hearing more, it's called Bite Back, and it's a compassionate guide to navigating eating disorders. I talk a lot about my journey through OCD and anorexia, and also it highlights 16 other stories of hope and recovery. So yeah, I was going to say it's a really wonderful book. I'm very biased, but I'm really proud of it. And so I encourage you to get your hands on it if you're interested.
I was gonna say, I've got that in my notes. Like, is she gonna mention it or do I need to?
I always forget.
I was about saying it's such a good book too. Like, why would you skip it out?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, well, it was been lovely chatting with you, and I feel like I've even just myself, even if this doesn't change lives or anything like that, I feel like it's helped me. So thank you. I
Thank
just
you.
love hearing other people's journeys and the way, as you said, that we find out that hope is real. And that's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Is there anything you want to add before we close out?
Just thank you. And I guess if anyone's listening to this and going through their own struggles, keep fighting. The world is definitely better with you in it. And as we say at Voices of Hope, it's not weak to speak. So talk to someone, share the burden. And I promise you, fighting's a lot less difficult when you've got someone by your side. And again, thank you for creating such a safe place for me to share.
Thank you for joining us. Well, if you want to listen to the show, feel free to head over to any of our platforms, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, and you'll find more content there. And yeah, thanks for joining. We'll see you next time. Bye.